Underwood and Flinch by Mike Bennett. Read by the author. Copyright Mike Bennett, 2008 to 2012. For more information, please visit www.underwoodandflinch.com. Episode 10. The red sun was sinking behind the house as Lydia turned the Land Rover onto the drive of her Malaga home. As she approached the house, she saw the cars of her guests were already parked outside. She was delighted to see that everyone was here. She thumbed the remote control for the garage door and sang along absently with Oasis's Live Forever as she waited for the door to roll open. She then drove inside and turned off the engine. She reached down and popped the boot open before taking her handbag from the passenger seat and getting out. As the garage door rolled closed, she went around to the back of the car and opened up the boot. Inside was a loosely bundled blanket, which she flipped open to reveal the sword she had taken earlier from over the fireplace at Casa Underwood. Underwood's sword was different to Matthias's. Its blade was shorter and heavier than the elegant weapon of her ancestor. As a young girl, she had asked her father why the two swords were not of the same design.
"Well, they aren't some fancy display swords like you might get in some stately home, Liddy," Arthur had replied. "They're real swords, owned by real men." He'd pointed at the longer of the two. "This is your ancestor, Matthias Flinch's sword. It's what they call a sabre."
"And what's that one?" said Lydia, pointing at the other.
"That one is Lord Underwood's, our master's sword."
"Why is it smaller than the other one? Why doesn't the master have the biggest sword?"
"Well, he chose this sword himself, dear. Of all the swords that he could have had, there were many, Lord Underwood chose this one."
"Why?" Arthur tapped the blade of Underwood's sword lightly with his finger.
"Because this, Liddy,"
he turned to her with an expression of comic wickedness on his face,
"this does a man more damage."
Lydia laughed and reached out her hands. "Can I have a go?" Arthur chuckled.
"No, my dear."
He reached down and picked her up.
"You might chop your toe off or something like that."
"I won't, honest," she pleaded. "Please, Daddy."
"One day, Liddy, when you're bigger, maybe Lord Underwood himself will let you have a go on it. Maybe even let you use it on a bad man who wants to hurt his lordship. Would you do that for him?"
Lydia nodded fervently, as if she were being asked if she'd like another scoop of ice cream. "Yes, I'd chop off anyone who tries to hurt the master." Arthur laughed and nuzzled her hair.
"Good girl, Lydia. Oh, you're gonna do us proud."
The sound of laughter from inside the house brought Lydia back to the present. From beyond the door that led directly into the house's entrance hall, she could hear Gerald Benson guffawing at something. She picked up the sword. It wasn't in a scabbard. She'd taken it directly from over the fireplace when she left Casa Underwood. She checked the blade with her thumb. It was so sharp it almost felt hungry against her flesh. She slammed the boot shut. Then, with the sword in one hand and her handbag in the other, she went into the house. Flamenco music was drifting from the lounge. "Hello," Lydia called. Various voices came back in reply before Miguel, her personal assistant, came out into the hall to meet her. He was 24 years old and had lived with his parents in Malaga until Lydia had relocated him to a small house near the office in Almacina. His face lit up when he saw her. "Lydia, you are here!" Then he saw the sword. "Oh my God, you got it! Can I see?" "Of course." She exchanged kisses with him on either cheek and let him take the sword. Miguel admired the gleaming, battle-scarred blade. "Oh, it's amazing." I wouldn't go that far, Miguel. It's an old cutlass, not a lightsaber. But still, it is Lord Underwood's cutlass, no? Yes, it is. Lydia? Called Cynthia Benson from the lounge. Where are you? Come on in before Gerald eats all the finger food. Lydia entered the lounge. The Bensons were sitting on the sofa, each with a glass of wine, and Gerald with a tiny bread stick daubed with Russian salad heading for his mouth. Lydia wagged a finger at him. Gerald, don't you go spoiling your appetite now, will you?
Oh, no fear, Lydia, said Gerald. Cynthia's exaggerating. I've only had a tiny bit, though she's been carping on at me like I'm Billy Bunter.
Oh, you big fibber, Gerald, said Cynthia. You've been positively hoovering that stuff up. Gerald looked at the nearly empty dish of Russian salad on the coffee table.
Well, I like it, he pouted. Oh, damn it all, it's Beltran's fault for making such lovely nibbles.
Where is Belly? Asked Lydia. In the kitchen, said Cynthia, mixing up a jug of one of his exotic pharmaceutical cocktails. I see. Miguel began parrying invisible assailants with the sword. Lydia rolled her eyes. Put that down, Miguel. It's not a toy. Sorry. Miguel put the sword on the table. How is your brother? Dull. I left him with John. She turned in the direction of the kitchen. Belly! Beltran entered carrying a tray adorned with 5 glasses and a jug of red liquid. Pieces of fruit and ice bobbed and tinkled in the jug as he crossed the room.
Hola, guapa. How was your day?
Oh, never mind my day. How was yours? Did everything go according to plan? Beltran set the tray upon the coffee table.
Perfecto. No, Miguel?
Si, perfecto. Excellent, said Lydia. Oh, but don't say anything now. I want it to be a surprise.
As you wish, said Beltran.
Cynthia leaned towards the tray and picked up one of the already filled glasses. What is this, Beltran?
It's sangria, a la Beltran. Brandy, Cointreau, red wine, fresh orange juice, and of course my secret ingredients. Ha! Tell us, Beltran, said Gerald, sucking Russian salad from his fingertips. What is it you put in it? Ecstasy, that sort of thing, I cannot say, Gerald, said Beltran. If I tell you, it would not be my secret any more.
Cynthia sipped her drink. Lovely.
Thank you.
Beltran picked up a glass and handed it to Lydia.
And your brother? Is he going to be a problem?
Oh, I don't think so, said Lydia, accepting the drink. He has no taste for the necessary bloodshed. Beltran smiled.
It is an acquired taste, no?
Yes. She raised her glass. It certainly is.
I propose a toast to Lydia, resurrector of the Black Circle, and soon its master, the Lord Underwood.
Glasses were raised by all. To Lydia. They drank. Thank you, Belly. You're too kind. But all I did was revive an old family tradition, and by that I don't mean his lordship.
Ah, Gerald chuckled. But a terribly important one, if I'm any judge of these things. How old is the Black Circle, Lydia?
Well, it was established by Lady Vanessa Crichton in 1736 as the inner circle of the sect. By that time the sect was growing, and she wanted to reward its original members with special status.
And special powers too, eh?
Lydia smiled. Such things weren't hers to bestow, Gerald.
But she is one of your family, no? Said Beltran. You have noble blood in you.
Yes, she bore Matthias a son, at the command of her and our master.
I say, it's fascinating stuff, isn't it? Said Gerald. I wish I could get my hands on those old diaries of your ancestors. I mean, the scrapes they must have got themselves into, eh? The things they must have seen.
Alas, Gerald, the diaries are locked up in John's study, for the eyes of the guardian only, so even I wasn't supposed to see them, though of course being the clever little thing I am, I managed to copy his key several years ago. I read oodles of stuff before John cottoned onto me and put that dratted code lock on the door.
Oh, what a rotter, said Gerald. I of course mean that in the nicest way possible.
Lydia waved the matter away. He was only doing his job as he saw it. In the time I had access to the study, I learned all I needed to know. And so the Black Circle was reborn, said Miguel. And now we stand on the brink of a new age of vampires. Hear, hear, said Cynthia, raising her glass. To a new age of vampires. They toasted and drank again. Then Lydia said, Anyway, enough of all this toasting and arsing about. I want to get into something more comfortable. These shoes are absolutely killing me.
Splendid, said Gerald. Then on to the main course, eh? It's been ages since we all got together like this.
Yes, said Cynthia. It's been so long, poor Gerald's dry skin rash has come back, hasn't it, darling?
It has, yes,
said Gerald, holding out his arm and pointing to a patch of white, scaly skin. Beltran inspected it with interest.
Yes. I have just the thing for this problem, Senor Benson.
He gave Gerald a knowing wink that set both the Bensons off into a fit of giggles. Evidently, the cocktail was beginning to take effect. Cynthia ran her fingers up Gerald's arm and onto Beltran's hand. Oh, Dr. Morales, I do believe you've got the perfect thing for all ailments. Lydia knocked back the last of her drink and set the glass down on the table with a flourish. All right, then, what are we waiting for? She slipped off her jacket and dropped it to the floor. The others began to unbutton their clothes.
I say, Beltran, said Gerald, fiddling with his shirt buttons, I think that mixture of yours is already starting to kick in. My fingertips feel wonderfully odd. I think I'm starting to come up.
Cynthia peered over and looked down at his lap. Yes, aren't you just? You know, Beltran, I simply must get that recipe off you. David felt to the left of the cellar door and found a light switch. He fumbled it on, and a light came on below and to his right. He knew that if he looked down in that direction, that among the white-painted stone pillars, he'd see Underwood's coffin lying on its plinth. But instead, he averted his eyes and focused on the stairs ahead of him. They were scuffed and dirty from the comings and goings of so many feet over the years. Whose feet, he wondered? All those hooded men and women of the sect who had come to worship at the weird and twisted rituals of his father. Who were they? Some were no doubt rich and powerful, others merely useful, like his mother or Conchita. John had said that he used to come down here to commune with Underwood. But was that all he used to do? Had he too conducted the strange rituals? David took a step down. As he did so, in his mind he saw again the robed figures that had been gathered in the candle-lit cellar for his baptism into the sect on his 8th birthday. Their faces had been shadowed by their hoods, but he'd been able to see their expressions. Some had smiled at him encouragingly, while others had regarded him with colder eyes. He took another step down, the musty, dank smell of the cellar rising around him now as he recalled how he'd felt sick, giddy, his skin prickling with dread. As it prickled now as he took another step down. He could sense the coffin now, a dark shape in his peripheral vision, but still he didn't turn to look at it. He didn't want to see it, not yet. Just as he hadn't wanted to see it on that night of his baptism either, the candlelight reflecting in its dark, polished wood, the man inside, alive, waiting for him. David stopped and put a hand to his brow. It was cold, yet damp with perspiration. He looked at his hands. They were shaking. Jesus Christ, stop thinking about the past. You're freaking yourself out. He gripped the sword handle tighter to try to stop the blade from trembling. Fuck it! What's wrong with me? Underwood's about as dangerous right now as someone in cryogenic suspension. Well, it makes him about as dangerous as Walt Disney, doesn't it? Oh, but he's not Walt Disney, is he? Walt Disney's a dead man in a fancy fridge. Underwood is a vampire, and he's not dead. Technically speaking, he's alive, and he's within spitting distance of you. You want to get your nerves under control? Then forget all this shit and go upstairs and have a drink. That'll work wonders. Oh yeah, that's a fucking great idea, he said aloud. He shook his head and determinedly took the last few steps to the cellar floor. Then, without giving either his fear or his reason a chance to debate the decision, he turned to face the coffin. His breath caught in his chest at the sight of it. It was exactly as he remembered it, though now there were no robed figures around it, no Arthur Flinch crooking his bloody finger at him, beckoning him forward like he had a pile of Christmas presents lying in the coffin beside him. Now there was just the coffin and the stone plinth it lay upon. Above it hung a single naked light bulb. "Hello, your lordship. Long time no see." David's throat was dry, his voice little more than a whisper. He stood a moment staring at the coffin, as if waiting for a reply. He raised the sword, looking along the length of it to Underwood's resting place in the centre of the room, and in that instant the enormity of what he was about to do came home to him. He suddenly felt nauseous, dizzy, like he was going to faint. Jesus Christ, come on, pull yourself together. He noticed he was breathing in short, shallow gasps and forced a deep breath to enter his lungs. Immediately, his dizziness dispersed. He forced himself to take a step forward towards the coffin. The sword handle felt slippery in his grip despite its rough material. He transferred the weapon to his other hand and wiped his damp palm on his jeans. "Don't do this. You can just turn around and go. John must have had a car. Take it. Drive to a hotel. Fly home tomorrow. Surprise Lisa. Ask her to marry you. Have kids. Have a life. Have a fucking gin and tonic if you want one, but just get the fuck out of here." David shook his head. "I can't do that. This is the best chance. The only chance that me or anyone else is ever going to get to kill this bastard. If I don't do it now, people will die. I might die. Shit! If I don't do it now and I try and run out on him later, then he'll track me down, kill me for sure. And Lisa too. Yeah, he'll kill her. He'll kill us both." He transferred the sword back to his right hand and raised it again. The blade still trembled, so he gripped his right wrist with his left hand to try to steady it. He took another step towards the coffin, focusing his eyes on it and trying to ignore the shadows of the pillars that felt as if they were blotting into a single darkness at the edges of the room. The temperature seemed to be dropping the nearer he got to the coffin, like moving through water towards a body of ice. But he knew these things were just illusions, his fears playing tricks upon him. That even now, as he took another step forward, and the shadows seemed to begin to move. Well, that couldn't be, not unless the source of light itself were moving, and he glanced up from the coffin to the bulb that hung above it, and froze. The bulb was moving. It was covered in thick dust, toasted brown over the years, and it threw a nicotine-yellow light that hardly seemed to reach the edges of the room. And it was moving. Barely, but it was moving. David held up a hand to feel for a draught, but there was none. And still, the bulb moved, more noticeably now, in the weird manner of a magnet when dangled over another, their poles repelling each other. Around him, the shadows swayed with the movement of the bulb, heaving and yawing left and right as if they were rolling on a swelling tide. This is bad. This is all wrong. This is unnatural shit in here now. Leave. Leave now and forget killing him. He can't be killed by the likes of you, so just leave. Get the fuck out of here. But he was frozen, transfixed by the swaying bulb, its movements slow like a pendulum underwater. Was Underwood doing this? Manipulating the light from inside the coffin? How? He was half rotten, wasn't he? Then the bulb made a fizzing sound. It flickered. Whatever mesmerizing effect it had had upon David was suddenly broken, and a small cry escaped from him. The bulb flickered again. Oh shit! David's voice trembled. He took a step back. The bulb, still swaying, hissed and popped as if it was somehow overheating. Get out! Get out now! No, be rational. It's a bad circuit. It has to be. Just an electrical fault. Then, with a rising buzzing sound, the light bulb flared into brilliance before exploding, its shattered fragments flying in all directions. David cried out. He staggered back, his free hand shielding his eyes. When he opened them again, the room was almost pitch black. Almost. He turned and looked up to the light coming in from the library door at the top of the stairs. The door was closing. No! David screamed. No, it's me, David! I'm down here! The door closed, clicking quietly into place and plunging the cellar into absolute darkness. Panic seized him, and he ran in what he believed to be the direction of the stairs, only to crash blindly into a pillar. He screamed, staggering back, feeling at his head for the wetness of blood. His fingers came away warm and sticky. Oh, Jesus! Then, from behind him, came a low sound. He froze, listening. There it was again. It sounded like wood, like the scrape of a heavy oak coffin lid, unsettling from an age of stillness. No! Oh no, you can't be. You're supposed to be as good as dead! The scraping came again, this time long and protracted, as if the coffin lid was slowly being slid aside. David, his heart pounding, raised the sword unsteadily against the darkness, because now he knew that, dead or otherwise, whatever was in the coffin was rising. Thank you for listening to Underwood and Flinch. More episodes will be added to this YouTube channel soon. To download the entire audiobook for free right now, go to www.underwoodandflinch.com or search for it on iTunes. Thank you.